A 5-year-old is fighting for her life tonight in a Spokane hospital. Spokane police are investigating the death of her mother, who they found in their home Sunday afternoon with serious and traumatic injuries. We have the latest tonight.
3 Washington counties are moving backwards to phase 2 of reopening, one right here in eastern Washington, Whitman County. So today we explain what that means in places like Pullman and what they're going to need to do to move forward.
Tracking lots of sunshine this week, but it's also going to get very windy on Tuesday. We're tracking blowing dust advisories and wind advisories. And later this week, everyone age 16 and up in Washington will be able to get the COVID-19 vaccine.
We're going to let you know how you can get an appointment next. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Whitney Ward.
Well, a 5-year-old is fighting for her life in the hospital tonight. Spokane police are investigating the death of her mother, who they found in their home Sunday afternoon with serious and traumatic injuries. We have the latest tonight.
We also know that there was a suspect who was discovered at the scene, locked in their North Spokane garage. KREM 2's Amanda Rowley has the latest for us tonight.
Good evening. Spokane police tell me that 5-year-old girl was taken into surgery. She is in the ICU and still in critical condition tonight. As for the suspect, though, he is at the hospital in police custody and is in stable condition. Spokane police are investigating a crime scene after discovering a woman who died from serious traumatic injuries at a North Spokane home. Sunday afternoon, the Spokane Fire Department discovered the woman and a 5-year-old girl who was still alive but with serious injuries. They also found an adult male locked in the garage with the car running. Police believe he is behind the death and attack on the victims. Family members have identified the child as Lily and her mother, Cassie. We are intentionally not sharing their last names to protect the privacy of the child. Today, balloons, flowers, and a card lay in their yard from family and friends. We spoke to a few neighbors off camera who say they are heartbroken Lily lost her mom and is now fighting for her life. They describe her as a sweet little girl, adding the family moved into the home about a year ago. Police have not confirmed any identities, but they say once the suspect is booked into jail, they will release his name. Charges have not yet been filed, but they will be once the suspect has been booked into jail. At this time, it is unknown when the suspect will be released from the hospital and taken to jail. Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
Now, this devastating case may demonstrate a trend in an increase in intimate partner violence.
Our Morgan Trow spoke with a domestic violence services agency about why they believe the pandemic has led to a shocking increase in violence.
Before the pandemic began, Spokane County had the highest rate of domestic violence in Washington, being a few points higher than the state average. Advocates say the pandemic has only made the issue worse.
Isolation and domestic violence go hand in hand, and it just makes it that much harder to kind of leave a relationship like that.
YWCA is a nonprofit that empowers survivors of abuse. Education and outreach advocate Gemma Rydell says the pandemic may have led to an increase in violence. Calls to the hotline increased more than 40% in 2020, moving from the average of 3,500 calls in 2019 to 5,000 in 2020.
When a person is isolated, they don't have that support system. They don't have those regular kind of touch points with folks that they would normally see, coworkers, whoever.
On Sunday, Spokane police say they found a deceased woman and her severely injured 5-year-old. The family identified the woman named Cassie and her daughter. The police say the suspect in the homicide turned the car on with the garage closed. Relatives of Cassie say she had just left her fiance and that the suspect is her ex.
The most dangerous time for a survivor is when they go to leave or right after they've left a relationship. They are 70 times more likely to be murdered by their ex-partner after they leave than at any other point in their relationship.
The CDC says that more than half of female homicide victims were killed by their partners. With an increase in calls and an increase in police domestic violence reports, Rydell wants to let survivors know they are not alone and that their free and confidential 24-hour hotline can be reached by phone, text, and email.
And so if you, for instance, place that helpline call, an advocate will answer and can either, connect you to other resources or can help you safety plan in the moment if that's what you need. And sometimes it's even having somebody there to listen to your story can be really powerful for survivors.
The hotline is also for loved ones, so anyone can get information on how they can help. Reporting in Spokane, Morgan Trow, KREM 2 News.
All right, taking a look weather-wise now, the winds are picking up here across the area throughout the inland northwest. And tomorrow, Tom, it sounds like is really going to be the windy day.
Absolutely. We've got advisories, blowing dust advisories and high wind advisories. I'll look for those gusty winds tonight and again on Tuesday. Could see reduced visibility out in areas of central Washington as we get that dust in the air. We'll look for sunny skies, though, this week. And temperature-wise, it looks great. We're going to go from 50s into the upper 60s and even into the lower 70s by the time the weekend rolls around. You see, we've got that blowing dust advisory out here in central Washington and the lower Columbia Basin. That's through 8 o'clock Tuesday night. Also a wind advisory in effect also across portions of North Idaho, including Kootenai County and Coeur d'Alene. That also is in effect through 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. We're at 52 degrees right now. Wind is blowing, but not as dangerous as we think it could at times get tomorrow. We'll look for wind out of the east, or we currently have wind out of the east-northeast at 16 miles per hour. We still are tracking a few showers around the area. They will decrease once the sun actually sets. Most of the rain has been, and spotty showers have been confined up into areas of northeastern Washington. Mostly clear skies expected tonight with an overnight low of 36. 57 the expected high tomorrow. That's about our seasonal high, but it's going to get much warmer than that later this week and into the weekend. My gosh, 72 degrees on Saturday, 74 on Sunday. Keep in mind, the average high this time of year is about 56 degrees. So that's looking pretty special. Whitney?
That's looking fantastic, Tom. Thank you. Well, counties across Washington were evaluated today on whether they meet the requirements to stay in Phase 3 or if they'll be forced back to Phase 2. Here in eastern Washington, it's good news for most, but not all. Our political reporter Casey Decker has the details now after a big announcement from the governor this afternoon. Hi, Casey.
Hey, Whitney. Well, last week we learned that in order to be kicked back to Phase 2, counties needed to fail both criteria. Originally, the plan was failing just one would get you sent back. Those criteria, case rate and hospitalization rate. So how did our area do? Let's take a look. Spokane County, they passed this test, though just barely. Our case rate for this evaluation, 181.2 cases per 100,000 over 2-week span. We just needed to keep it under 200, so we are okay there, though still definitely kind of cutting it close. Our hospitalization rate, meanwhile, 6.1 hospitalizations per 100,000 people over 1 week. The target there, under 5. So we did not pass that metric and really have a lot of work to do in that regard. But since we didn't fail both, we do get to stay in Phase 3, at least until May. Now, meanwhile, things are looking much worse for Whitman County. It's the one county east of the Cascades that actually failed both metrics. Their case rate, a whopping 416 cases per 100,000 people, really nowhere close to where they want to be. And hospitalizations, 5.9 per 100,000 people over 1 week span, also not good. This means Whitman County will be going back to Phase 2 starting this Friday. Now, exactly what does that mean? Well, the biggest change happens to indoor dining and shopping. In Phase 3, stores, restaurants, gyms, and other venues can let people in up to 50% capacity, but now in Whitman County, that will just be 25% again. Also in Phase 3, outdoor social gatherings of up to 50 people are allowed. In Phase 2, the max is 10. However, we should note that within the city of Pullman, the max was actually already lowered to 10 last week because of rising cases there. And tonight, a spokesman for the university told me that that decision is already showing some impact.
In the last week or so, we've started to see a decline in infection rates, I think in part because there's just less of these larger gatherings.
So WSU is hopeful that the numbers will be back in control come time for the next evaluation in May. They'll need to make significant gains, though, if they want to avoid getting pushed further back into Phase 1, let alone hope to be allowed back into Phase 3. Meanwhile, Spokane County, again, staying in Phase 3, but certainly not in a super comfortable position with those current numbers. Whitney, Tom.